In this Foundations of Reading Development video, we're going to talk about coding oral language, building upon that idea that written language is meant to make oral language more durable and transportable. Given that, there's a particular grounding that we have to embrace, and it's that if language is a code, the basic units of this code are the phoneme and the grapheme. And these are two concepts that we are going to spend a lot of time with in this video. Let's start with the phoneme. If we pull apart phoneme based upon its units of meaning within the word, we see that phone means voice or sound. Eme is a unit of language structure. So based upon this, we can understand that a phoneme is one speech sound. What do I mean by this? Let's look at some sets of words. In this word set, I have two words, word one and word two. On a scrap piece of paper, think about the sound that you have to substitute into word one to get to word two. I'll be right here. Put me on pause. And we're back. In set one, if you had the word pin and you wanted to turn it to the word tin, you would need to substitute the sound p with the sound t. T would be the phoneme that you would substitute. That would be the phoneme of difference. In pin and pen, it's that middle vowel sound that you would want to substitute. I would need to become eh. To get from pin to pit, you would have to swap out the n sound with the t sound. And then from pin to chin, you would have to substitute the ch sound for the p sound. We'll come back to that ch later. Keep it in your mind. When we're thinking about a phoneme, that phoneme is the unit of sound, the smallest unit of sound, that differentiates one word from another. And that becomes important because we want kids to be able to differentiate those sounds and understand what makes a word different from another word, even if the majority of the letters within the word are the same. How does that change based upon that one different letter and what that means for the sounds within that word? So a phoneme differentiates one word from another in terms of the sounds. We also want to remember that we can't write sounds. We can only hear them. So we can refer to the sound represented by the letter N rather than the letter N makes this sound. We really can't hear that sound. We really can't write that sound. So we want to make sure that we're clear with kids that the N is a letter that indexes a particular phoneme. We could think about N as a grapheme, though. And when we're thinking about a grapheme and we're pulling it apart for its meaning units, a graph means drawn, written, or recorded. And eme, again, is a unit of language structure. So if a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound that differentiates one word from another, the written representation of that phoneme is a grapheme. This is the unit in the written code of English language. What do I mean by this? Let's work through some examples. Remember that graphemes index phonemes. So for instance, if we have the word pin and we segment it into its individual phonemes, we hear p, I, n. We hear three phonemes and we represent them with the letters P, I, and N. In this case, the P, the I, and the N are graphemes. They represent those sounds. There's a one-to-one correspondence. Now remember that a grapheme is a written representation of a phoneme. And in the last example, there was that one-to-one correspondence. So why am I still saying grapheme and not letter? Think back to chin. Here's my callback. If we segment chin into its individual sounds, we get ch, I, n. The interesting thing here is that ch, which is two letters, makes only one sound. So in this way, ch becomes the grapheme. Hence, when we say that a grapheme is a letter, we're actually not accurate, because a grapheme can be two letters. So let's update our idea of what a grapheme is. The grapheme is the written representation of a phoneme. It contains at least one, but also can be more, letters. Another trick here is that phonemes can be represented by multiple graphemes. For instance, if we think about the sound k, it's represented by the grapheme K in the word key, the grapheme C in the word cone, and the grapheme Q in the word quilt. We'll dig into more of these sound fluctuations in terms of graphemes and phonemes later in this series. But to wrap up this particular segment, I want you to remember two things. A grapheme is not the same as a letter. The grapheme represents a phoneme, and it can contain more than one letter. Think about it this way. When we talk on the phone, we hear things like in phoneme. When we look at a photograph, we see something. So a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound that differentiates one word from another. And a grapheme is the representation of those sounds. It contains at least one letter, but can also contain more.